time out of your schedule to participate. I am here because I was fortunate enough to be invited by Miss Sylvia Hubbard, and when I learned about what you all were doing here with the Motown Writers group, I became extremely excited. I've always been a huge advocate for creators, fancied myself a amateur writer periodically in a creative space, and I just love what she's doing here with this group. I swear it is really easy to take for granted leadership and take for granted when individuals are willing to pour into you and spend time making sure that you have the tools, making sure you have a fertile environment to thrive, to grow and glow. And so I thank you, Miss Sylvia Hubbard, for thinking enough of me to invite me to be with the group today. Once again, my name is Juwan Buford, and I'll give you a little bit about my background. My professional background is actually that of a former investment advisor. I actually hail from the financial services industry. Did that work for over a decade, working with business owners and entrepreneurs from all stripes and sizes, startups to partnering with and serving Fortune 500 companies. And I share that information with you not to impress, but simply to impress upon you. Look, okay, I see you're, okay, good, you're able to open. So impress upon you that I'm not one of those random Joes, so to speak, that just started up an entrepreneur endeavor 2 minutes ago, watched a YouTube video, read a book, and now I'm dispensing advice about it, right? Now, I've been doing this for now almost 20 years. In the capacity, once again, as an investment advisor, then B2B entrepreneur here, working with business owners in a different capacity, just simply made a pivot and utilized the B2B experience that I garnered over those years to now turn around, build businesses myself, and help others do the same. So the other thing I want to share with you is this. I am not a quote-unquote business consultant. I'm an entrepreneur. I build businesses, and then I help other people do the exact same thing. So I'm not a guru. I'm a guru, right? I actually do the work, I do the things, I execute on the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And so I want to make sure that you are aware of that. I am the founder of JSB Business Solutions Group, now managing partner. I work with the Grow Givers Project, which is an online publication that promotes entrepreneurship, gives away a lot of good information that people can use to grow their businesses. We give it away for free. Yeah. So we know oftentimes in our communities we hear people complain, sometimes rightfully so, about the fact that a lot of times people operate in a spirit of paucity, in a spirit of lack, and so they're not willing to share the things that are required to be successful. And that oftentimes hurts our community, and it really doesn't help them at all, because a rising tide lifts all ships, right? We're going to do the opposite here. You're going to get a lot of useful information to help you level up in your business. We believe in sharing that information, so we do that on the Grow Givers Project. I'm also a business owner with PPLSI, and so we're an organization that helps business owners with the technical assistance they need in terms of legal questions, tax, accounting, HR, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So enough about me. Let's get into the topic that we're going for today, and that's basically helping entrepreneurs avoid a handful of mistakes that oftentimes plague many of our businesses, and specifically for those individuals who are creators, right? And so that's what we're going to get into today, a guide, so to speak, for helping entrepreneurs avoid mistakes, right? The common ones that oftentimes strangle most of our business. So where are we headed? What are we going to be talking about today? We're going to talk about personal branding. We're going to talk about estate planning. We're going to talk about business structure. We're going to talk about digital presence, employment classification, LLC protections. Because some of y'all believe just because you set up a business structure that somehow you're protected. That's not so. We're going to talk about operating agreements and contracts, and protecting businesses against liabilities. Yes, we're going to have a conversation about those things. Now look, before we go any further, I have to give you the disclaimer, right? This content is made for informational and educational purposes only, and it is not meant to substitute for legal, accounting, or other professional advice. Translation: Use this information. Inspect what you expect. We're big boys and girls here, right? So I am not an attorney. I am not a tax and accounting professional. You should seek advice and get questions answered, especially legal matters, with an attorney or other professional services provider, right? I don't want any of you saying, well, Juwan told me to do this and I went out and did it and now I fumbled the bag. No. Now, if you want a connection with solid legal, tax, accounting, marketing services, I can definitely be a conduit for that. I know Ms. Sylvia Hubbard can certainly do the same. But once again, let's put on our big boy and big girl pants and make sure we do our due diligence. All right, so enough of the disclaimer today. So number one of the first things I want to talk about in terms of mistakes that business owners make. Number one is not quite understanding how important and the impact of how you structure your business, what doors it can open and close for you, right? Most individuals didn't go to school for tax law over the last 7, 10, 15 years to understand how the difference between the LLC, S Corp, and C Corp has serious tax consequences. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, right? So one of the mistakes that I see very often is people automatically set up an LLC when they're getting ready to start a business. And it's not necessarily something necessarily wrong with that. But I know about knowing many of you today listening in, if you have an LLC, and particularly if you start earning grown adult income, right, you start approaching 6 figures, I know your biggest headache is going to be self-employment taxes, 15% on top of state and federal. And if you're not maximizing your deductions, you will automatically be in a situation where you're paying Uncle Sam 30%, sometimes on up in taxes. Right, so you have a lot of people nowadays who are switched from LLCs to S Corps because you get money to self-employment tax, but then you have to worry about non-taxable dividends, reasonable income calculations, and ultimately you're going to need to take on an accountant, right, to help you with those calculations. Now, I'll hear a lot of business owners, particularly when they're first starting out, and they'll ask, well, is it worth it? And look, where I come from, if you could put $3,000 in the ATM machine, and every time you put $3,000 in the ATM machine, $15,000 kicked out, where I come from, that's called a victory, right? A return on investment. And so, yes, it is certainly worth it, right? Because that's what it's going to cost on average to have an accountant simply look at your QuickBooks or look at your tax and accounting and make sure that you are maximizing your deductions and make sure that you are operating the S Corp correctly. So this is a very important distinction that a lot of entrepreneurs just aren't made aware of, right? Also, if you are looking for investors, or at some point if you're looking to partner with individuals, oftentimes in order to make that happen with an LLC, you have to make them a member of your LLC. And when you make someone a member of your LLC, you're basically making them part of the concrete. They actually have some type of ownership and even operation and management interests in your business. Whereas opposed to if you have an S Corp, just FYI, people can invest with you, people can partner with you. You can give them an interest in your business, but you don't necessarily have to give them any type of control or management in your business. That's a big difference. It's something that individuals need to be aware of, right? So I wanted to touch on that. One of the other misconceptions or misunderstandings people have is they'll set up an LLC. And have you heard this before? I have LLC and I have liability coverage, so I don't need an attorney. Or I'll hear my LLC covers all my tax burdens. Or something else I'll hear is that my LLC automatically protects my assets. And unfortunately, that is not true, right? There's a couple errors in judgment that people make when they have LLCs that can be real problematic. Like I'm assuming most of you have them if you're participating today. The first thing is this. All the protections of an LLC go completely out the window if you're commingling money. What does that mean? So you earn money from the sales of your books, from the publishing of your work, right? You take that money and let's say you set up a business account because you have an LLC. So you have an LLC, you have a business account attached to it. But sometimes you go in that business account and what are you doing? You're paying for groceries. You're going out at night and taking steak and egg and grape juice pictures. You're utilizing that money for personal matters as opposed to business. Well, look, if you ever get into some type of legal conflict, or heaven forbid you're ever dealing with some type of audit, people aren't going to look for your box of receipts. They're going to look at your account to see whether or not you are utilizing house money, business dollars, business monies to pay for personal things. And the moment someone is able to uncover that, it's game over. Your LLC no longer protects your personal assets because there's no clear separation. The argument's going to be is that you and your LLC are one and the same. It's not a business. It's just you moonlighting as a business owner, right? That's one of the common mistakes. So what should you do? You should have a business account. You should pay yourself like an employee. So if you want to pay yourself $1,000 out the business account this week, you pay it into your personal account and you utilize the monies in the personal account to actually cover your expenses. So some of you are out here using Cash App. That's one of them. People are not aware of the fact that the government is highly scrutinizing Cash App, and monies that go in there could be counted as personal income. Even if you're utilizing Cash App to transfer monies to compensate an employee or to pay for a business expense, I'm trying to warn you that, look, that can be easily interpreted as personal income to you. So you want to avoid transferring money from your business to yourself in that way, right? So that's something important to be aware of. The other thing that's very important to do is to make sure that you are paying the annual fee. I sat down with a lady earlier this week. She was getting ready to buy a commercial property worth over $250,000. And I'm not an attorney, once again, but I've been around for over 20 years working in the B2B space. So I asked her for the purchase agreement. I looked at the purchase agreement on her phone, and I saw two things that caught my attention. Number one, I saw that she signed the document as an individual instead of signing the document as a company. That is a huge no-no. So for any type of agreements you're signing, whether it's an MOU, a LOI, independent contractor agreement, vendor contract agreement, you are securing services with somebody else and they're asking you to sign documents, you want to sign in your business name. If you sign in your personal name, it doesn't matter the assets owned in your business. It doesn't matter if you're doing it over the course of conducting business. You can still be held personally liable. One of the first things I also did while I was sitting down with her is I went to the state of Michigan website and I pulled up the name of her business, and I found out that her annual fees had not been paid for 3 years. She actually found a registrar to help her set up her business. The registrar ended up skipping town. It happens, right? People fall out of love with your business. People get married. People take on a new occupation. And when the registrar decided to switch industries, and all of her information was going to that registrar, the registrar was not paying the annual fees or updating contact information. So, for the last 3 years, she's been thinking she's operating as an LLC, but if anything would have transpired, whether or not somebody wronged her and she wanted to take action, or somebody wanted to take action against her, and if you've been in business for longer than 2 minutes, one of the first things you learn is that most legal issues have nothing to do with merit or principle. Someone's mad at you, trying to get even with you, and trying to get over on you. And it happens more regularly than you think, right? The other thing that I oftentimes learn about that individuals who own LLCs or S corps or corps period don't realize is that corporate minutes are a big deal. They are a big deal. And look, I know legally, according to the state of Michigan, you don't need to keep corporate minutes if you're operating an LLC. I'm here to tell you, you better keep corporate minutes. Okay? What are corporate minutes? I'm going to give you like a real rudimentary understanding of what they are. Companies have something called shareholder meetings, right? Where they share accounts payables, accounts receivables. They talk about strategies that they're going to employ in terms of how they're going to invest dollars that they receive. So whether it's with expanding staff, whether it's invested in technology, whether it's invested in research, if they're going to give pay increases or decreases, right? You have these shareholder meetings where they're basically talking about this is the money coming in, this is how the money's going to work going out, and this is the strategy, and this is the thinking 3 months, a year, 5 years ahead. Well, guess what? You should be having at least, at the very minimum, monthly shareholder meetings with yourself. Something that I share with individuals quite regularly. I shared it with a young lady actually a couple days ago. I had a presentation I was giving out in Farmington. And I looked at her and I said, you think you are a businesswoman? I said, no, you're not. I said, you are a business woman. It's a difference, right? You're not a businesswoman. You are a business woman, and you need to treat yourself that way, right? Because once again, everything I'm sharing with you is designed to protect you. It's designed to make sure that you come across an unscrupulous attorney, or you come across somebody that's as seasoned as I am and you get into a conflict with them. You want to make sure you are taking these steps to create a clear delineation between yourself and your business. And these are just some common missteps that occur on a regular basis that I want you all to be very, very much keenly aware of. And once again, if you have questions about corporate minutes and how to utilize and protect your business, format them, definitely follow me and we can have more of a conversation about that. Okay. Here's another thing that entrepreneurs regularly drop the ball on, and that is getting your estate plan done. Okay. It is one of the most important things you can do. And people oftentimes think about estate planning in terms of life and death. And yeah, they're important for that reason, right? You started up a business. You own a car, a house. You have $2 in the savings account, or $30,000 or $100,000 collection interest, whatever the case may be. Look, getting the estate plan done is also one of the most important business decisions you can make. It is so absolutely important. So often I hear people talk about leaving a legacy and building wealth. And you're just talking if you don't have your estate plan done. The only thing you're going to leave behind are memories, tears, pictures, and hard feelings. The only people winning in probate court are the judges and the attorneys. Why is this important? Because some of you actually partner with other people. Some of you have LLCs or you have corps where you have other people that you are working with, either in a vendor agreement or a contracting agreement. And let me give you an idea of what can happen if you haven't taken the time to get your estate plan done. Or in particular, if you don't have an operating agreement in place, okay? And an operating agreement is basically the playground rules. It talks about, in terms of your business, who has what responsibilities, who can make certain decisions, who has access to monies, how those monies can be spent, who owns the intellectual property in the business and who doesn't, what happens if someone falls out of love with you, what happens if somebody decides they just want to move into a different industry, what happens if someone gets sick or disabled, or what happens if someone, you or someone other than you, you're driving down Telegraph or you're driving down Woodward or Peachtree Drive, wherever you're at today, and some knucklehead runs a red light and slams into you. And let's say you meet your maker. If you don't have an estate plan in place, and particularly if you don't have an operating agreement in place, let's say it happens not to you but someone else, right? Your partner. You don't have these things in place. Do you know who inherits your partner's interest or even their responsibilities in that business? It's going to be their children or their wife. They're going to become your partners. So all of a sudden, individuals who were not involved in your project, all of a sudden, individuals who didn't spend any sweat equity in building what you spent years of time, effort, and energy in, all of a sudden they become your partners. And now you may be dealing with the quote-unquote little snotty 12-year-old kid that doesn't care whether or not the business is operating correctly, doesn't care whether that's profitable, they don't care about the mission or vision or the reason why you got these things started. They just want the money. Or they want to start making decisions about the business and they know nothing about the industry. This happens on a regular basis. So for those of you who have spouses, it can happen. Those of you who own businesses jointly with other individuals or you're working on projects together, you need to make sure that, number one, you have a personal estate plan that addresses these things, but those things need to also be in your operating agreement for your business. Because if you don't, I'll give you a case in point. Spoke with a young lady, started up a couple daycares a number of years ago. And her business partner ended up getting COVID. It took 3 weeks off. Do what she needed to do to get healthy again. Nothing wrong with that. However, after taking 3 weeks, she decided she was going to take 3 months, take a year. She wasn't going to come back. But she still wanted to take money out the business DBA account in order to take care of her family without showing up to work anymore. Now, because this business was well established, had vendor contracts, had loans against capital, had a number of other financial situations going on, it wasn't like the business owner that I was talking with could just simply close the accounts and change the name, right? They were receiving government monies and a whole bunch of other things that were going on. And even if she set up another account, she didn't realize the difference between an and or account. And so because it was still attached to one of the LLCs, that other partner would have still been able to access many of those assets. Now, she didn't set up an estate plan. She didn't set up an operating agreement. She didn't set up a partnership agreement because they were good friends. They had known each other for years, been best friends for years. Families came over to each other's houses and ate food together during the holidays and broke bread and swapped stories. And that still transpired. And it happens more often than you think. And so these are very important. Getting that estate plan done, getting that operating agreement together, okay, provides clarity, and it makes sure people stay in their lane, they play nice, and BS.com doesn't transpire, right? If you catch my drift. All right? Here's something else that a lot of people are not aware of. I come across a lot of creatives and just business owners, period. And they'll be having conversations with me about the intricacies of their business model, who their clients are, what tools they're using to execute and be successful. They'll share all that inside information with me. And more often than not, they don't have NDAs. Or, which is a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement. Now look, business owners don't have to worry about me because guess what? I'm easy to find. I can't hide, right? I have certain credentials. I'm trying to maintain those credentials. I'm not trying to get into any type of legal conflict or issue. Former investment advisor, I don't need that type of smoke in my life, right? So I'm not going to do anything shady or untoward that could damage my bag. But you know what? Most people don't have that kind of integrity. Most people don't have that type of business background. A lot of people don't have anything to lose. And so they will abscond with your information. They will abscond once they learn about who your clients are. Or if you have important partnerships that have been responsible for building your business. You should have an NDA. Right? You should keep one in your back pocket. And I'll tell you something that I've observed over the years when I'm looking at individuals' NDAs. An attorney loves nothing more than the words mediation and arbitration. Those things can go on for weeks, months, years. The NDAs that I use have teeth. In other words, if I feel like I need an NDA, which is a lot of the time, and I slide that document across the table to you, it's not going to say nothing about mediation or arbitration. It's going to say, I believe my business is valued at A, B, C, and D, and if you break this confidentiality agreement with me, you owe me A, B, C, and D. In other words, there's a $10,000, a $25,000, a $50,000 penalty attached to you breaking your word with me. And over 20 years, I can probably count only 3 NDAs that I've ever read aside from mine that actually brings monetary consequence if somebody divulges information they shouldn't be divulging. So just gave you a lot of game there. Okay. The other thing that business owners oftentimes fail to realize or they drop the bag on is having non-solicitation agreements. So this isn't for someone that you're simply sharing information with because you're looking to partner with them or build some type of business relationship, transactional or otherwise with. These are people who are working in your company, partnering with you. You actively have arrangements with them. You need to have a non-solicitation agreement. And this is becoming so important because as of a couple weeks ago, if you're not aware of it, you can't use non-circumvents anymore. Yeah, that's a problem. Non-circumvents before made it clear that an employee or a vendor or a contractor or 1099 whoever was working with you, that they could not. Got kids in the background, so you may hear a little noise here and there. Dad moment. Okay, so you have to give them the evil eye and let them know don't get started. So you use those documents to make sure that someone you worked with couldn't learn about your systems. Once again, learn about what you were doing, see your intellectual property, learn about your clients, and move across the street and become your competition. Guess what? You can't use non-circumvents anymore. They're illegal. Right? That law was just passed and went into effect a couple weeks ago. So now non-solicitation agreements are becoming extremely important. You need to make sure that you have those documents with you when you begin to enter into a relationship with someone to partner with them, whether it's a vendor, contractor, employee, virtual assistant, administrative assistant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And once again, I very rarely see business owners put these documents in place. Now, I know some of you may be thinking once again, well, look, I'm just getting started. Look, every large company started out as a small idea. Every company started out as just some ideation in somebody's mind, right? So the attitude becomes for the altitude. Treat your business a certain type of way. Don't starve the baby, right? Put the things in place that will help your business grow and become a grown adult, right? And pay you grown adult money. So those are some things that I've oftentimes seen, particularly when it comes to legal documents, that entrepreneurs, particularly creatives, will drop the ball on, right? Understanding contract mechanisms. Now I'm going to get a little bit nerdy here, a little bit esoteric, a little bit academic here, but I think this is so absolutely important. Many of the individuals that I come across, whether you are someone that's doing a project for you, they're involved in providing some type of service for you to help you with your book or help you with your creative work, or vice versa. Somebody's contracted your services. You need to have an independent contractor agreement in place. Because look, I know we've all been there. You've been in business longer than 2 minutes. You enter to an agreement with someone where, let's say, for example, you agree to deliver A, B, C, D in services, right? The person agrees to pay you for those services. It's simple, you think. But then midway through the process, they start asking for additional work. They start asking for additional time. Or maybe they're missing appointments. Or maybe they're coming unprepared, right? And they want you to do extra, but they don't want to pay you the extra compensation. This happens all the time. And it can be really, really problematic, right? There's something called laws of rescission. And these are laws that are in clauses that will be in independent contractor agreements that can actually void a contract. So you're delivering services to someone, but the contract isn't worded properly. And I'm going to get into a little bit of that in a moment. And you're expecting payment. And they're like, no, I'm going to back out. And there's nothing you can do about it as a contractor providing the service. Or maybe you've been on the receiving end of this. You've been paying someone and they back out, right? You have to, there are clauses you have to look for in independent contract agreements that will allow people to do that. And sometimes it's not what's in the document, it's what's not in the document. Certain things need to be accounted for, like payment schedules. It needs to be in your independent contract agreement. Like, how are you going to get paid or how you're compensating someone else? There needs to be a schedule. It just can't be, I'm paid this amount of money for this doing. No. You need to have in there the mode of payment, how you expect to receive payment, or how you're paying someone else. Whether it's a check, money order, Stripe, utilizing a business DDA account and making transfers, whatever the case may be, that needs to be accounted for. If it's not, it can be very problematic. Scope of work. I believe in MOUs and I believe in LOIs, memorandums of understanding, where before an independent contract agreement is even signed, an MOU is a document that basically spells out, these are my responsibilities to you, these are your responsibilities to me. This is the schedule in which we're going to deliver these things. This is who owns whatever's being created as a result of this relationship. This is the intention of this relationship. And it's not a binding contract, but it's a document that makes it clear before you sign the binding contract what the lay of the land is going to be. Right? And so now you have an MOU and you have an independent contractor agreement. So if some type of legal conflict occurs, it protects you even more. Once again, whether you're delivering services or somebody's delivering services to you. If someone says, I want to work with you, I want to help you with A, B, C, and D, for instance, my virtual assistant that I work with in Nigeria, I made sure that an MOU was drafted so we are clear on what you have access to and what you don't have access to. What are the consequences? If you create something for me or if I do something for you, right? All that stuff is clearly delineated in terms of ownership. What are the terms under which this agreement can be, what are the terms in which this agreement can be dissolved, right? Or this arrangement, this relation, all there. Something else that individuals oftentimes drop the ball on in their independent contractor agreements is attorney fees. Yeah, you need to spell out, if this relationship goes south, who's responsible for paying attorney fees? I cannot tell you how many contracting agreements that I've read, particularly when you're the creative, when you're the entrepreneur, the small business owner, and you're handing somebody a contract. And I look at it and the attorney's fees are in there. Man, I can open up Pandora's box. You know, whether or not you want negotiation or arbitration, or is it just going to be clearly defined XYZ transpires if XYZ bad behavior happens, right? And then, of course, personal guarantees. So individuals will sometimes look to acquire loans. They'll look to acquire funding from private investors. So whether it be a micro lender, bank, private investor, heaven forbid, hard money lender. And in these documents, there'll be personal guarantees, and people overlook that. Basically, what's being said is, you secure these monies from me. Not only is your business on the line for it, you're on the line for it. So I come see your car. It doesn't matter if you have an LLC or S corp. It doesn't matter. You signed a financial agreement with a personal guarantee in it. So I can come see your watch. I can come see your checking or savings account. I can come see your timeshare, right? All these things now all of a sudden become available to me to come after you. And banks and financial institutions and business owners who are grown adult businesses and they understand the lay of the land, these things can happen very easily. You need to be very aware of those things. Now, there are loopholes that you can use to protect yourself, right? When, once again, you're entering some type of agreement, whether you're rendering services, somebody else is rendering services, whether or not somebody is saying they're going to pay you for products or services you've created. These are the types of things you want to look for, because they can utilize the lack of a personal guarantee against you. Now, I've heard some horror stories out there where individuals supposedly are supposed to help someone publish or print a book. Certain monies are supposed to be paid and distributed as a result of the sale of those books. And because these documents aren't in place, a lot of creators and artists basically get messed over and they end up not getting paid. Somebody, goes as far as even duplicate their work. But let's say they don't duplicate your work. They're just selling your work in a back alley, if you catch my drift. And then you find out about it. But there's no personal guarantees in the document. I know what I would do. I would just dissolve the business. Now there's nothing for you to sue. There's nothing for you to acquire. And there's no personal guarantee in the document, so you can't even come after me personally. Right? These are the things you need to be aware of as entrepreneurs, particularly as creatives. Right? Once again, I kind of jumped ahead for the sake of time, but I'm going to reiterate it because I've seen this happen one too many times. Stop signing documents in your name. You need to be signing documents as the business, and you are just authorized to sign on behalf of the business. If you have questions about how that looks and how to set up your documents where you can sign them in that manner, have a conversation afterwards, right? I have some people I can refer you to who can help you out with that. Sunset rules. Let's say you do acquire a home. Let's say you do acquire a house. Let's say you do acquire a building. Let's say you do enter into an agreement with a printing press or a publisher or vice versa. There are certain things that you can put in a document to protect yourself. One of those things are something called sunset rules. What's a sunset rule? Let's say I signed for monies with a bank, private investor, microlender, whatever the case may be. And inside that document is a personal guarantee. Well, a sunset rule says, well, that personal guarantee only extends 3 or 5 years. It can't be indefinite. Right? In terms of any obligation. Or it can say, you know what? Okay, personal guarantee, but after 2-3 years, my house is off limits. My car is off limits. My checking and savings account, my personal income is off limits. Right? You can actually put that in documents. And a lot of people just aren't even aware that you can do that. Right? So you're sitting with somebody who's looking to help you fund your business, or vice versa. Right? Or you're sitting with someone to provide services, and the event the relationship goes south, you want to be concerned about recompense. Give me one moment, about to have a dad moment. I can only hope to control them for short periods of time. I cannot stop them. All right, I'm back. So once again, that is one of the things you want to be aware of as well when you're signing documents, right? Giving you a little bit of information so you can just be a little bit more savvy, right, about how to protect yourself when situations like this transpire. All right, personal branding, how you show up in the marketplace. This is a question that I receive all the time, right? Is it worth getting a trademark, right? Now, most creatives, particularly literary creatives, understand you need to get your work copywritten. But you also need to get your work trademarked as well. Because I'll say it again, whether you're a man or woman, you are not a businesswoman, you're not a businessman, you are a business man or woman. You are a business. And so yes, right out the gate, if there are symbols or logos, even likenesses, pictures of yourself that you use to promote your products, you need to get certain things trademarked and protected. I had the unfortunate conversation with a business owner who shall remain nameless, but they have a clothing and retail store and they create artwork, and just wonderful business owner. Been in business for about 20 years here in Detroit. One day, somebody who had been working with them for a number of years decided that they were going to move to another city that's only like literally 10-15 minute drive from where they were at, set up the exact same business, same name, utilizing a lot of the same marketing materials, even utilizing their likeness. This is bold. The business owner shared this with me, and once again, because I've been in business for a while, I just started asking questions. I was like, when they were working with you, did you have a non-circumvent? Now non-solicitation, you can't use non-circumvents anymore. Did you have an independent contractor agreement with them? Did you take the time to do a trademark? Or some of the content you were using was specific to you, but did you copyright? She says, yeah. I said, oh, tell me about it. She told me she did the ghetto copyright. She did the ghetto trademark. Most people are not aware of the fact that you can't do that anymore. That's not going to hold up in a court of law. You have to now go through the process of going online, if you're old school, fill out that paperwork, and get things copywritten and trademarked. Because once again, every large business started out as a small ideal, right? McDonald's started out as one location. Starbucks started out as just a smattering of coffee houses, right? Be aware that there are people who don't have your skill, who may not have your talent, who don't have your wherewithal, but they have money, they have capital, and they have access to distribution that you may not have. And if you don't protect your assets, they can utilize your assets, run it through their channels, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's something to be really, really aware of. Be aware of your presence online. The stuff I post on Instagram, I don't post on LinkedIn. The stuff I post on LinkedIn, I may not necessarily post on Facebook. The stuff I post on YouTube, I don't necessarily post on TikTok, right? Channels have specific purposes. Be really careful about how you protect your brand. Be aware that people are watching you, even if you think they're not watching you. People are watching, observing. Just because they're not liking, just because they're not sharing, just because they're not commenting, that does not mean they are not closely observing you. And this is a big deal. I see this happen a lot with small business owners and entrepreneurs. I'm a firm believer. I'm not one of those individuals that says, don't tell people what you're doing. I don't believe in that. Because if you're not telling people what you're doing, yeah, there are foes out there, but there are friends. There are people who can open doors for you. What I am a big proponent of is execution, then telling about it. So I'll share what it is I'm doing, but 9 times out of 10, by the time I've started sharing it, I've already begun the execution on it. Right? And it's just something to keep in mind, because some of you all are broadcasting your dreams on social media. And once again, there are people out there who may have more resources, more connections than you, and they can manifest that dream before you can, and then you find yourself in the wrong place, the wrong time, and some BS.com, you're on the wrong side of the fence, right? So I talked about maintaining your online digital presence, right? And having multiple and multiple frameworks in terms of how you post and how you show up online. Also be aware, once again, and I kind of touched on this in the beginning, but it's important because it happens a lot. the rules have changed in terms of who's considered an independent contractor and who's considered a W-2, an actual W-2 employee, right? And these things are important because people oftentimes talk about, I'm only working, this person's only being paid underneath the table. They're being part-time, their spare time. I'm 1099 in them. But if you're telling people they have to come to an office at a certain time and perform for you, or somebody's doing this to you, if you're telling people you can only use my equipment or utilize my resources, if you are working people past a certain threshold, usually about 30 hours, sometimes depending on where you're at, 25 hours a week, you may not realize it, but that person can be classified as a full-time employee. Which means you got to be concerned about issues like workers' comp. That has huge tax implications for your business. These are things that, once again, even if the person is working with you for 2 months, but for that 2 months, you two are going hard in the paint. They're a contractor. Got to be careful about that. You got to make sure your independent contractor agreement clearly spells out these type of separations. A lot of entrepreneurs get in trouble because of this, particularly when it comes to taxes. Or once again, you fall out of love with an employee falls out of love with you, a partner falls out of love with you, a contractor falls out of love with you, and they know something about the differences between a W-2 and a 1099, you don't, and they get sick, or you quote unquote fire them, and now they're seeking redress, and you're thinking you were just operating with them as a contractor, but you weren't aware of the fact that you maybe broke certain rules. You kind of moved into a gray area with them. And as a result, they're not suing you. And once again, you need to be protective of your rights too, because it can happen vice versa as a creative. Where I've seen a lot of creatives work with or partner for companies and other entities. And they're doing 30, 40, 60, 70 hours a week. They've signed an agreement that says they're an independent contractor, but they're not working like one. And then they get disabled. They get sick. Something goes south in their life. The person fires them or severs the contract. And they don't realize they're entitled to certain benefits, right? These are things you need to be aware of, right? The other thing that I'll leave with, last but not least, actually a couple things I would go into. Talking about some employee classification things are a real trigger for me because it gets into issues related to insurance. I'll hear people say, well, I don't need liability coverage. I don't need insurance. Or my favorite is, I have liability coverage or I have insurance. You need to understand that when you acquire any type of insurance policy, insurance companies are wealthy not because they're in the habit of paying claims, they're in the habit of not paying claims. And so I'll hear people, particularly those who have staff, or you've acquired a building or an office space, or you're entering into certain type of agreements, right, involving intellectual property, or you're in a situation where, once again, someone's rendering services to you. And you say, I have liability protection in the event of a lawsuit. Got to read the fine print. It doesn't cover everything. You need to have an attorney review the document. I have horror stories about how people have liability coverage in place and they still don't think they need an attorney if somebody penetrates that liability coverage. So that's something to be aware of. It's a document and the law is legal. It's not logical, right? So you think logically A, B, C, and D should be covered, and it's really not. Now I'm going to give you an example that's related, but not related, right? A different industry. I just met with a business owner not too long ago. He has a trucking company. He was driving his truck, making a left turn. Somebody tried to shoot the gap. We've all seen it. Hopefully none of you have tried to do this. But someone tried to shoot the gap and make the turn before he could complete the turn. His truck hits their vehicle, caused some serious damage. A lot of stuff went on. He, a month later, goes ahead, files a claim to kind of put a bow on things, tie it up, and not be done with it anymore. And he found out that the particular policy he had to protect his truck covered everything else with the exception of an incident like that. And it happens all day, every day, right? People not reading the fine print. So hopefully the information I shared with you, at the very least, inspired some thought. Hopefully the information I share with you, at the very least, perhaps maybe pointed out some things that you need to be more cognizant of, and be more aware of in terms of changes you may need to make, right? Maybe a lot of this information you've heard of it before, but you just didn't apply it, right? And it reminded me, but these are the common issues that I've seen happen with entrepreneurs, once again, particularly creatives. These are the things that cause the most problems. Once again, my name is Jawan Buford. I believe entrepreneurship is empowerment. And I'm glad and I'm excited to be with you. Once again, I'm glad for inviting me to have this conversation with you. I love the creative space because I believe you all are operating and potentially are building businesses that can provide employment, that can provide financial independence. You know, it's tough to make smart decisions in terms of your family and your community when you don't know whether or not a job is going to be there, right? When you can't really project 2 months, 2 years, 5, 10 years out, right? It's tough. It is tough to be in a situation where you're last hired and first fired. We need more creatives. We need more business owners in the creative space becoming employers, right? Because it's the employers that determine how the grass gets cut, whether the police arrive in 2 minutes or 2 hours. It's the employers that determine ultimately whether or not a liquor store or rec center ends up on your block. And I'm adamant and I'm passionate about that. And so definitely excited about the fact that I was able to be here with you. I know there may be questions as our slides, for instance, that I'm sharing. Is there going to be some type of reboot, right, where you can look at this information for those who are readers? We're going to, of course, record this video, but we're also going to make sure that there's something that perhaps you can read. So yeah, the answer is yes, yes, and yes. We're going to make sure this content is available for you as well. Also, for those individuals who are looking to acquire my contact information, my phone number is 248-560-7564. I was hoping I have a little pretty slide and nice pictures of my contact information, so I'll give it to you here, 248-560-7564. I'm not hard to find. You can also find me on LinkedIn. My contact information is there as well. I have an online publication with Substack. It's called the Grow Givers Project, and you can reach out to me there as well at the Grow Givers Project on Substack. Or if you just simply look up JSB Business Solutions online, you'll find my business phone number, contact information as well. So I am going to switch gears here and go to the waiting room, if you will, to see if there were any additional questions. Yes, I heard, please tell me this meeting's being recorded. We're going to make sure it's recorded. Yes. Jesus, stop a lot of my work because we need to get that logo trademark. Yes. Have my work copywritten. I love it. Yes, dad moments happen. Yes. S-Corps get you from underneath that 15% self-employment tax. It is huge. It's a big deal. Here's the thing too, that where business owners make a mistake. And it happens across industries, but particularly in the creative space. People don't want to pay taxes. So they will write off everything they possibly can. And then it basically looks like you're not earning any income. And it feels good in the short term. But what happens when it's time to buy the equipment? What happens when it's time to get that administrative assistant? What happens when it's time to qualify for that government program? What happens when it's time to actually acquire the building or acquire the house and buy the car and you haven't shown income? That's a problem. It happens a lot. There are a lot of doors that will get closed to you because of doing things like that, right? You have people who don't build up independent business credit lines. So I'll talk to business owners, and one of the first questions I'll ask, or maybe second or third, is I'll ask, hey, do you have your Dun & Bradstreet? If you don't have a Dunn's number, man, I'm telling you, a lot of doors open and close. People ask questions like that. They look for information like that. They look to see if you have an operating agreement. They look to see if you can produce a P&L statement. They look to see if you have corporate minutes to find out whether or not there's a foundation there. They want to see if you're a real business owner or if you're just hustling. Like, is there a method to your madness? Is there systems in place? Right? That's what they're looking for. that gives them a good indication of whether or not you're trustworthy. Not simply because from a moral character standpoint, but just, do you have integrity to your business? Is your business going to be here 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now? And if you don't have those things in place, even as a creative, people will look at you sideways. There's certain, like I said, there's certain places you won't be able to gain entrance into to even promote your business, because they're gatekeepers. There are gatekeepers in the creative industry. Whether you are a writer, whether you're a painter, whether you're a musician, there are gatekeepers. And these gatekeepers aren't necessarily gatekeepers because they're trying to keep you from getting on. They're just making sure that you're viable, right? Before they start promoting you. So I'm glad you brought that up. The S Corp also is a good way to lower your taxes, but also show income, right? And once again, get a tax and accounting legal professional. If you don't have that person in your network, let's have that conversation. Thank you, Ms. Hubbard, for putting the website in there. Make sure if you borrow money from family and friends, your punishment if you pass away without paying them back. Yes, they could. They can do that. This is a issue. Okay? You want to make sure you are, when people loan you money, there's a couple things you want to be concerned about too. Number one, make sure there's some type of promissory note. It's documented. Right? And once again, what assets can someone go after, or what assets can you go after if you loan somebody money or vice versa? Also, here's another thing. Look, someone loans you money, how do you treat that money? A lot of people will end up receiving gifts from people, but because you don't document it correctly, that ends up showing up as income. I've seen people actually have people invest in them privately, but because they didn't document the money properly, that ended up becoming income to them and ended up being taxed on it. That's something to also be aware of, right? So that's something you want to make sure you document. Don't be skeptical about going into business with people. Just get your document, your paperwork right. Let me give you another, give you a little bit more game. Man, y'all, I like Miss Hubbard, so I'm giving you more than I should. I'm giving you more than I should. Jawan Buford doesn't go into business with people. JSB Business Solutions Group goes into business with people. I don't enter into business relationships with people personally. My business does. So that way, if the relationship goes south, my business operations aren't being disrupted, theirs aren't either. If there's conflict over money, over client, we just separate the businesses and go about our separate ways. It's a good way to keep things clean, right? Whether you fall out of love with a person, not because something bad transpired or something negative transpired, but maybe you just decided to move on. So if I entered into a business relationship with Vanessa, and we start signing paperwork, okay, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this, we're going to work together. No one on there is going to say Jawan Buford is doing business with Vanessa. No, we're going to keep that separate. It's going to be JSB Business Solutions Group is doing business with Vanessa McCoy, LLC. It makes it a lot easier, and I'm trying to tell you, it avoids a lot of unnecessary conflict, right? So that's something also to be very, 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 very aware of when you're entering into relationships with other people. I believe that's the cleanest way to do it. What's something else that I'm looking at? I'm just looking for questions in here. I'm sorry, I was looking at the PowerPoint, so I wasn't really keeping up with the questions. I'm going to look to see if there are a couple more that I may have missed, or a couple more statements I may have missed. Write the donations down on the receipts. That's very true. But make sure that there's some documentation that clearly demonstrates whether or not this is a loan or not, or whether this is a gift or not. Okay? I can tell you, unfortunately, from working with business owners, once again, when people try to sue you, when they try to audit you, They're not asking for the box of receipts anymore. They're not. They're looking for documents. All right. All right. I think I covered all the questions. If I did not, let me know. And I think Ms. Hubbard did put my information in there, so you'll be able to reach out to me. Oh, I just saw where I can do it here. So I'm going to put it here in the, this is what I'll do. Wasn't thinking. You know, you get lazy and you get accustomed to using PowerPoints. You forget there are certain things you can actually do here. All right. So I just put my contact information there as well. So I promise I will keep this to an hour or less. I accomplished that goal. That's a huge feat for me because, as you can tell, I can go into deep dives when it comes to certain subject matters. I thank you once again, Ms. Hubbard, for the invitation. I thank all of you for taking time to participate, provide feedback and questions. Yes. Have people sign the document indicating this is a gift or this is a loan. Yes. That's what I mean. The receipts are not good enough. Yes. So yeah, once again, I thank you all for your time. It's great being with you. Thank you, Ms. Hubbard, for just making me aware of this group. I heard of it before, but I'm definitely going to take time to contribute more. And you all are inspiring me. And this was just as much of a fun and incredible experience for me as hopefully it was for you as well. So thank you again.